A long time ago when I started the Free American back in 1996. I started the Free American and I started the militias because I was so outraged by what had happened at Waco. Now, folks, Waco wasn't a compound. Those 17 little children weren't running guns. You know, there was no reason to kill 17 little children, burn them to death, run them over with tanks. This was a self-sufficient family farm. They were creating a rural community. By the way, it didn't happen in Waco. It happened in Elk, Texas. And I saw the pictures of the inside of their living room. It was a living room, folks, with 17 little children with 50 caliber bullet holes in the roof. And I've been given credit for Ron for starting the militias by the ADL and Southern Poverty Law. And I have to come clean. I did that. They just don't tell you that I did it in the governor's office.
You're in Arizona, right?
I'm in Arizona now, but I started out in New Mexico. And there has been a concentrated attack on me by their propaganda agencies, ADL, Southern Poverty Law. They've gone after people, they've gone after investors, they've gone after anybody that wanted to back me. And, you know, I've just today, it's kind of like an epiphany. I realized I haven't done anything wrong, didn't do anything wrong. And it's actually, I did exactly what we should be doing.
Well, as a matter of fact, the militias were an integral part of the original 13 colonies. They were loosely put together, but there is absolutely nothing wrong with a group of people banding together to protect themselves. And they've got a lot to protect themselves from. I have produced a video called The Coming Civil War, and in it I essentially predicted that if the government continues on the path that it is now treading, that we will come to skirmishes like Ruby Ridge and Waco, because little militias will pop up and they'll try to fight the big all-powerful government, and they'll lose. Because, like during the Revolutionary War, everybody had muskets and some cannons and horses and some sabers. But today, we have rifles and pistols, and but the government has M1 tanks and F-22 airplanes and aircraft carriers, and there's no way, pitted against an actual military force of the United States, that any small militia can hold up against them.
That's right. However, unless they all work together. Now,
that's right.
Let me take just a moment here, folks. You know, like I said, I'm working on an article, and the information keeps flowing in. I helped start it. According to the ADL, I was responsible. I advertised for the militia in New Mexico. The militia in New Mexico, I went to Arizona, and that was taken over by another gentleman, and he started the American Constitutional Militia Network. He started Jim Strode. He said the original Constitution of the United States intended for the people to have a right to keep and bear arms in defense of their nation against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. Today, the United States maintains the mightiest military in the annals of history. While they're well prepared to take on the challenges from all foreign nations, they do not negate the need for a civilian militia. Government in general has proven to have an extremely bad record on human rights and the preservation of fundamental God-given liberties. Further, the history has shown that the government which governs least governs best. It is for those reasons that our nation was built on the premise that individuals have a right, a duty, and a responsibility to belong to the militia. Our belief is that the greatest reason for the people to retain the right to keep and bear arms is as a last resort to prevent tyranny in government.
And it has nothing to do with hunting.
No. Today, our nation is in the hands of people who are so far removed from the original foundations upon which this country was built, the founding fathers would not recognize the nation they left us. Therefore, it becomes incumbent on us to state those things we believe in and work toward realizing a nation which represents those ideals. Ron, what's happening out there? We have a supreme propaganda program that we call mainstream media, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And they want you to be a good slave. Don't rebel against your masters.
And that's what they're training them to do in school.
The schools, I think that's even worse right now. The schools, and I've got this up on my blog TV site, the schools, they're training our children to be prisoners. There is no difference between the school library and the security systems in the school library than there is in the prison library.
Well, they're also not teaching them to think. They're teaching them to be robots. They're teaching multiculturalism, collectivism. They're teaching political correctness. I have a grandson, a 15-year-old grandson that's in the 9th grade right now. And some of the things that he has been taught just literally turned my stomach. And yet he's a very intelligent, articulate young boy. But, you know, there are so many issues that play in which we are being attacked, from land use to environment to social justice to our schools to our funding of government services. It is a daunting task to look at this and say, can we really do anything? Well, yes, we really can do something, but it's got to start at the local level.
Well, Sheriff Richard Mack is an old friend of mine, and
Good guy.
I met him back when he was a sheriff. Went into his office. He was a subscriber to my magazine, and he is trying to start a organization of constitutional sheriffs. That's supposed to be in January in next month now.
Yeah, he's having a convention of some kind, isn't
That's right. And he's trying to raise money now to bring all the sheriffs in.
Mm-hmm. Well, he'll get the rural sheriffs and the rural counties and the rural states, but he's not going to get the sheriffs that are coming out of the big cities like, New York or Seattle or Portland or San Francisco or Los Angeles, because they're all part of the problem. Now, he might, but I very seriously doubt it. And there was a meeting on October 22nd for a group called Defend Rural America, and they had about 7 or 8 rural sheriffs there, and they all gave speeches that are similar to what Sheriff Mack believes. And so there's a core group of sheriffs in rural California that are now talking about constitutional issues and the power of the sheriff within their county. And their power is very significant if they will exercise it.
That's right, it is. And that's why I put on an event for Sheriff Deaver over in Cochise County. Tried to put it on. I mean, people were trying to disrupt that, too, with the lies and the propaganda. I mean, it's...
Clay, we represent a real threat to the other side that has literally been in control for 80 years. And that is why they have vilified Michelle Bachmann and Palin and anybody who stands up against the power elite right now is going to be torn to pieces. But we've got to get over that. We've got to forge ahead against that. And they've got the media that can put it out. The Southern Poverty Law Center has a direct line to the White House. They put out these lists. The National Association of Rural Landowners is on the list. We challenged them, told them to take it off. And we said if they didn't, we were going to sue them. They came back and said, if you sue us, we will come down all over you and force you to pay for our legal fees and the whole works. And of course, we don't have the resources that they have to take them to court. So we had to back down because of the fact a good general never makes a frontal attack against a formidable enemy. He comes in behind them. In any event, we knew that we couldn't win that one. And so the whole issue of the media and organizations like Southern Poverty Law Center They're the ones that are getting the attention, and that is what the average naive person believed. If it wasn't for Fox News, there hardly would be any reasonable news out there at all.
Again, that's the reason I started the Free American. It's the reason I started this radio show, and their attacks on me have been economical the same way, you know. I mean, Clay started the militias. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. I did it in the governor's office. You know, yeah, I'm backing the sheriff. Yeah, you know, I can walk into the FBI office and drop a bundle of magazines down and walk out again, but, you know, I got millions of...
Clay, they can shut us down. They could pull my website. As a matter of fact, the United States of America, the U.S. government, and the U.S. military hit my website every single month, and they are significant in the amount of times they hit it. So we know we're being watched. For all I know, my telephone is bugged by the FBI. But in spite of that, we have got to get more and more people up in arms, and I don't mean that literally, I mean mad, that their freedoms, their children's freedoms, their children's future is gone if us old guys don't fight. And I mean,
what about
now?
Let me ask you about these Occupy and Tea parties. You mentioned the Tea parties, and you mentioned Sarah Palin, but Sarah Palin has jumped up and told the Tea parties we need to bomb Iran. We need another war like we need another hole in our heads. You know
exactly.
And the Occupy parties.
I agree with Palin.
The Occupy parties. You know, let's see. What do I think of when I hear the word Occupy? I think about a guy taking a shit on a police car. Those images are planted, you know, to discredit it. They don't have a direction, and actually, or at least the press is trying to make them out like they don't have a direction, and we do. I mean, actually, you know, we want Wall Street bankers who've crippled and robbed our country, robbed us of all, and robbed our future generations brought to justice. We want the bankers tried and held accountable for their crimes against us. We want clean and fair government, not government for sale to the highest bidders. Wall Street bankers have stolen all our money. We can no longer influence our elected officials because the Wall Street bankers have driven the price to own a politician through the roof.
You saw Abramoff on TV, didn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, he laid it out in spades in his book, and they're all scrambling in Washington, D.C. right now because what he is revealing. But what he's revealing isn't news. The fact that they're buying off politicians in Washington, D.C. has been going on since the ink barely was dry on the Constitution. Whenever you have somebody in power, you're going to have somebody else trying to influence that power. And it hasn't changed.
It's never been easy to be free. And the Bible is basically a history book telling you about other tyrannical regimes and how people fought against it.
Sure. The Roman Empire lasted for around 900 years. The first 500 years of the Roman Empire, it was a republic until they started buying off the people with stuff from the government. And then right around the time of Jesus, the Senate abdicated their duties directly to Caesar. And that is exactly what is happening right now in Washington, D.C., where the Congress is abdicating more and more power, or abdicating their power, and more of it given to the executive branch, which is this new piece of legislation that essentially makes America part of the war on terror, where our own people could be targeted and whisked away without bail, without the right of habeas corpus, and could end up in Guantanamo or Egypt being tortured. Now, I can't. That's far-fetched of the legislation, but the legislation that is currently before the Congress right now would give the executive branch much more power on the war on terror, leaves the American citizen absolutely vulnerable to a situation where he has no rights whatsoever.
You know, I filmed the first Homeland Security meeting. It was held at Kirtland Air Force Base in Sandia Labs at Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque.
Mm-hmm.
Colonel John Brinkerhoff was lecturing law enforcement. I've got copies of the actual tape right here that he made. He said we're in for a long war. This war may last longer than the Cold War, and the enemy is weak. The enemy doesn't have planes, it doesn't have tanks, it doesn't have helicopters, so they will use unconventional methods, and we must use unconventional methods too. And he says in case of a natural disaster, a single outbreak of smallpox in a major metropolitan area, a nuclear blast, a earthquake of significant magnitude, say along the New Madrid fault line, we will need 400,000, 500,000 well-armed, well-trained, organized, disciplined troops to control the American people, because some of them just won't follow orders. In other words, some of us won't line up on the parking lot to get a vaccine that's going to kill us.
Bend over and spread your cheeks, Clay.
Yeah, this is do what the good TSA agent tells you to do.
Sure.
Yeah, put
Be
your children
obedient.
up to be fondled. And I'll tell you what, man, I haven't flown since they put this crap into place, because I'm not pulling my boots off for no, foreign agent.
Well, it takes longer to get where you want to go by horse, though, Clay.
That's why I ride a Harley, Ron.
Good for you.
But this whole thing, this laws that are coming, they've already passed Senate Bill 1959, creating the fusion centers, to try to point the finger at Americans who are standing up against this communist-run government. I mean, I guess if I'm opposed to a communist form of government, then I'm anti-government today.
You're a threat. And we look with the people that believe as you and I do, and there are millions of us. We just haven't totally coalesced yet. We are a threat to a way of life that has essentially come into existence over the last 80 to 100 years. And the people, you take the people who are on the dole right now, do you think that they are going to lay down and play dead because we can't afford to pay them anymore? They're going to riot in the streets, just like they've done in Greece and Italy, and they will do it here when the austerity programs have to kick in order to save America from financial collapse. And if they don't do it, then America will go into a financial collapse, and then you will see riots, and you will see martial law, and you will see military troops on every street in America.
It's already happening right now. These SWAT teams have been turned into these police groups. Their only job out there is to kill people. They've done that to the Iraqi veteran right here in Tucson.
Yep.
Shot him walking down the hallway to check on his house and to protect his family with a gun on his arms that was still on safety. And they shot him 40 times.
40 times?
Yes, sir.
Jeez.
The oath keepers came here, and that's all. The oath keepers are being attacked right now. Again, these are the people that honor their oath to defend the Constitution.
And they're also on the Southern Poverty Law Center list.
Yes, and I've been on this list. Now I've decided, Ron, that I've actually. They applied psychological warfare, and they tried to kill me. I mean, when you've been kept unconscious for 3 months for 3 broken ribs and a $750,000 hospital bill, I think that's a little excessive.
Sounds like a little excessive.
And this was after I came out with a plan for Liberty Villages in the centerfold of my magazine. After I referred to Building Number 7 as an exaggerated case of Jewish lightning, and they've tried to silence me and tried to stop me because I think I am a threat. And you know what? I think as the Southern Poverty Law was trying to give me credit for starting the militias, I'll take it. Because
absolutely.
That's exactly what we need to do.
This only means, Clay, that we're doing the job that we are directed to do. And if we make people mad, then we're doing the job. And I'm sure I have as many enemies as I have friends out there. And the government is probably one of those enemies. and believe me, they are not to be trifled with. You step over the line, you become a martyr, you get locked up in jail, like I know a lieutenant colonel in Tennessee who tried to exercise his rights when he saw corruption taking place in his county. They buried him. And this kind of crap is going on all over the country. If they don't like you, you get buried.
Do you think, here's a quote from Ayn Rand back in 1957. Do you think we want those laws to be observed? We want them broken. There's no way to rule innocent men. The only power the government has is to crack down on criminals. Well, when there aren't enough criminals, one makes one. One declares so many things to be a crime that it becomes impossible for men to live without breaking laws. And they've done that to us twice in the last 100 years, Ron. They made our grandfathers and our great uncles into criminals for making their own fuel.
Yep. For
the Model A's and Model T's, and they made people like me into criminals for daring to smoke the a part of a plant that was used to make the paper that we wrote our Constitution and our Bill of Rights on. They stole the hemp and made all of our farmers into criminals if they dared to grow it in this country.
Well, they've got people now they are coming down on who, what is it, farm milk, and it's raw, it's unpasteurized, unhomogenized, and they sell it to their friends and relatives or whatever. They make up a small business of it, and the feds are now raiding them and saying you can't do that anymore. And so the small farms are under attack as well. They can't take their wares to the market and sell them because it might be contaminated. They want to control everything. This is all, every bit of this crap is all about controlling the population. And whether it's food, whether it's energy, whether it's water, they want us totally under their control. But there are some of us that aren't going to be controlled. And every movie you see where there's an invasion of some kind or another, the American somehow or another ends up winning, and it's usually one guy that does it. And we're the one guys, Clay. We're the guys that are out raising the hackles and getting people more educated and getting them fired up to do something.
You know, Ron, that's kind of the epiphany that I had today. You know, I think we're under psychological attack. You know, the raid on Waco was a psychological attack. See what happens when you resist government by force of arms. You know, see what happened to Clay Douglas. You know, he started the militias. He tried to go against the government. He was anti-government. He did this. He did that. Well, I shied away from it. They were successful in their psychological attack on me because I pulled back into my shell. I started writing books instead of publishing magazines, instead of giving public speeches. You know. And I kept the radio show going, so I've still got my hand in there, and I've got the, but somebody has to step up. You've got to step up to the plate. I dared to do that. You've dared to do that. We put our name out there. My phone number's on on my website. You know, I put this program goes out on YouTube. It goes out on Blog TV, on Blog Talk Radio. I'm not hiding. My website is freeamerican.com, and I'm not hiding, folks. And I didn't do anything wrong. I believe right now that I'm getting back and playing my part in the whole militia movement. I wasn't wrong in the first place for the reasons I started it. We're not wrong now. We're not wrong now, and the only ones that are saying that, the only ones that are saying that are people that are feeding this propaganda into the Congress, into the FBI, into the mainstream public. You know, I believe that all rights come from God, whomever we as an individual deem that to be, and that no mortal man has the authority to deny the individual their rights except as a punishment for an actual crime. I'm posting this whole mission statement for the constitutional militias that was written by my friend Jim Strode, and I'm getting back in. I'm getting back in because
Good
it's
for you.
the only answer. It's the only answer we've got, folks. It happened in Occupy Phoenix. In Occupy Phoenix, the militias set up, the border guard set up, a private organization set up and marched in Phoenix with the protesters, which I believe is what our police ought to be doing, not opposing, but working together and walking with them and escorting them to the banks to make their protest.
We have found that in this community that the sheriffs, the deputy sheriffs, are all for the rural people and their way of life. But of course they're being directed by the sheriff himself with specific policies that they have to enforce. But as a mindset, the average sheriff, who's probably a property owner somewhere, he's all for us. But his hands are tied to some extent. In any event, the people are rising up, Clay, and this is only the beginning of this battle. And in the end, we're going to win some significant issues if we start at the local level and start taking back our cities and our counties and eventually our states. It is that power of the 9th and 10th Amendments that gives all the other rights and powers to the people and the states that will save this country. And we gotta move fast. I'm 74 years old. I'm not gonna last forever. I still got a lot of energy left, and I'm still gonna fight until my last breath. But we need young people coming into this movement and starting and understanding what America really stands for and getting involved in the process. And that's what our new project coming out here in a week or so that we're going to start doing at the local level.
Good. I totally agree with that. I'm for Richard Mack backing the sheriffs. And, we need to work. Here's the trap that we fall into, folks. You got people out there like Alex Jones that won't have me on because they don't agree with my stance on Israel, for instance. So they consider us competition. I don't consider. I always said, if you want my job, man, you just show me you can do it better than I can. I'll let you have it. I'll do something. I'll move up the ladder. I'll do something else. And what I'm suggesting here is that we do start the militia because the militia is you. When I was working with a presidential candidate, somebody told him that the militia was his bodyguards, and they said, "Are you the militia?" And I said, "Yeah." "How old are you, son?" He said, 20. I said, "Well, guess what? You're the militia too. We are all the militia, and we do have, I'm an oath keeper. I took an oath to defend the Constitution. There's no expiration date on that oath. We're still doing that, but we need your help. We need your donations. We need your support, because we can't do this alone. What they want to do is destroy us economically. That's what they've tried to do to me. I'll be speaking this next week in Tucson, and Ron, I'd like to have you back on my show on a fairly regular basis.
I'd be proud to do it, Clay. Good luck in your battle.
All right, sir. Thank you. You can send out the links to the show. It's all up on my website. You can download this show as a PDF or as a MP3 file and put it on your site.
Okay.
And God bless
Very
you.
good.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, and God bless you as well.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
All right. Let me get this up. That's done.
Call recording has been completed.
Thank you, animated lady.